Right, so hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Fred and Arthur podcast.
Welcome back, it's a pleasure.
So yeah, in episode 1, as we spoke about last week, we were sort of just introducing the podcast and speaking about podcasts. This is the first one where we're going to talk about an interesting topic in depth. And today's topic is Instagram versus reality, or I guess social media versus reality. And so we're going to talk about everything from, things that people fake online, the sort of perceptions that people give off on social media against how, things really play out in reality. But then go into some more interesting kind of like knock-on consequences of that, like the way it makes people feel about their bodies, and also sort of how people go about making their real life a bit more similar to what they see online, in particular cosmetic surgeries, and some really interesting stories about, cosmetic surgeries gone wrong, people who have taken it too far, and the sort of impact it's having on the world now. So we've got plenty of interesting stories and research to talk about. But let's start off with, I think there's sort of two distinct things that people fake on social media. So I think you've got a category of people who don't have, pretending that they do, whether that's money, a certain lifestyle, and then you've got people who do have, that are pretending that everything's great and they love the fact that they've got all this, but like deep down they're unhappy. So let's talk about, I think, false perceptions in terms of people who don't have, pretending they do. There are loads of good examples, but like what kind of stuff do you find particularly interesting when it comes to like things that people fake online? Like what kind of stuff have you seen?
I'd say the biggest thing is like people obviously only showing or sharing stories or being active on social media when they're either on like lavish holidays or like they're on these big nights out in London, and then the rest of the time they're completely inactive. So they're actually representing kind of 5% of their lifestyle through social media, which isn't necessarily a true reflection of who they are as a person. That's
true. I think on social media, I know quite a lot of people that kind of like will work normal 9-to-5 jobs and save up, and then every couple of weeks splash it on something and stick that on Instagram. And I think if you look to their Instagram, TikTok, whatever profiles, maybe even YouTube channels for people that vlog it, there are so many people where you just think like every single post is, you on a yacht somewhere out in the sun, like on a crazy skiing holiday. And you don't really see a lot of the grind of just the normal 9-to-5 working life that a lot of these people have.
I also think the difficulty lies when people actually, that's how they monetize their content. So that's when it's really difficult, because them projecting this lifestyle actually, I don't know, it might increase their sales for a particular course they're selling, or it might be literally how they make a living. So if they don't show off this lavish lifestyle, they could literally be, to the extreme cases, like homeless. So that's when it's difficult, because is that in a sense okay? Because that's how they make a living, and it's not like they're just showing off just for the sake of it. Like you also get people who aren't necessarily in the social media space and will, I don't know, not even, it's not their job. They have a standard 9-to-5, as you say, but they will just project this lifestyle for nothing other than to impress other people. And I think that's where the issue lies. Whereas it's very difficult and controversial where people have to do that in order to make money.
Yeah, that's so true. I think that comes to a first big point, which I'm sure you've seen a lot, is crypto investors, real estate investors, FX traders. There's a big thing, and a couple of people have been caught out for it, where they rent the most amazing Lamborghini, the most amazing house in the hills, and they sort of go, I've got all this money. If you want to find out how I've got all this money, buy my book, buy my course. And then they go back to their, rundown 1-bedroom apartment, which obviously there's nothing wrong with, but they're pretending like they've got all of this money to get people to buy their courses. And they go, oh, this person's got a 20 million Hollywood mansion. They must have loads of money. I'm going to buy their course. And they actually...
Yeah, exactly. Or they'll only make their money through the affiliate link. So they won't, say like those FX traders that you see in Dubai, they're not actually making their money through trading. They've got affiliate links and things like that. And that's I guess, that's where it's massively scammy and not maybe the best way to earn your money. But I guess that's kind of a downfall for social media, because people still fall for it. People are like, they're very vulnerable online, and we'll go into that later on, the kind of extremes people go to because they're so vulnerable and insecure. And that's where I think, it is a bit of a scam.
Yeah, that's true. I actually hadn't thought about that. You kind of, you don't only have these FX people, but, you get everyone kind of going, I've got a Lamborghini, I've got a mansion. People go, how do I get that? But there's quite a big scam where you know, you get FX people and crypto people that go, you know, I can make you all this money. Come try it with me. Give me $1,000, $5,000. And they don't actually invest that. They come back a month later and go, I've turned your grand into 2, or I've turned your $5,000 into 10. Here, have your 10 grand back. Now what do you want to do? Like, do you want to invest with me or something? And they go, yeah, actually I've got that 100K in my bank or whatever. I've got a house, or I'm going to take out a loan, give you loads. And that's when they really invest it. And obviously a load of the time, you know, they don't make that money back, or the crypto.
That's interesting. Yeah. Or they can almost treat themselves as like large corporations or banks almost. Think about all the investment they receive, and they're pooling together all that money.
Yeah.
And they're probably making more money off the back of that, and then distributing it to their kind of people that invest in. And all you need is a couple like good reviews, and then people are sold. That's the other thing. You know, you got fake reviews online, people scamming, and it's a bit of an issue, I guess.
Yeah. And going back to the sort of faking the lifestyle as well. So that's obviously more of an obvious one. That's scamming people out of their money. But you get a lot of influencers, and like, you know, when it comes to influencers, people follow the people who kind of often have a lifestyle that you can't attain. You know, if someone's living in mansions, taking crazy private jets, a lot of people follow them because you're just like, damn, you know, it's impressive, and hardly anyone does that.
Yeah.
And now you get a lot of people faking those kind of lifestyles. I actually saw, this isn't even in my prep, it's just reminding me, I saw a TikTok girl doing this dance, doing this trend. And as she flicked her hair, you could see the green screen flicker behind her.
No way.
And it looked like she was in the nicest, you know, those little sort of like huts that are stood up on wood out in sort of Bora Bora and stuff like that. And it looked like she was on that holiday until her hair flicked. Yeah. The green screen hadn't updated behind her.
But what do you think,
actually wasn't on it.
But what do you think she gets out of doing that?
Because more people are going to watch that video if she's in Bora Bora doing that in front of this crazy hut with this blue sea and sky behind her than if she's in Grimsby, you know, with her backyard in the back shot.
It's also interesting though, the people that say like the Love Island people, or people who aren't on social media to sell anything, but they go on these like mental holidays that people are kind of jealous of. People don't really understand how they kind of make money, and they're almost just living a very normal life, but in these crazy locations abroad everywhere. And I think that's why people get jealous as well, because they think they don't work, or they think they don't do anything. And so it almost makes maybe more like the younger generation who are vulnerable and consume a lot of social media content, it makes them think and that they can be kind of lazy, and that they can just sort of get away with doing nothing or working hard to get to that point.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's where people become really envious as well. And they just want to get to a point where they're, I don't know, it's just where the bad rep for social media influencers come from, I think.
And there's only certain, like, I think the market's getting pretty saturated now. Yeah. Like, how many people are out there that travel vlog and all of their Instagrams look perfect and all that kind of stuff? Like, if you were one of the first people to do it on Instagram, you probably gained a crazy following. But now I think you could start an Instagram account, post the most stunning pictures of crazy holidays all the time, and not necessarily even cover your bills. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. And also because it's so easy to misconstrue your audience and manipulate, say through editing or like you were saying with the green screen, like it means that there is a huge volume of people who are projecting this lifestyle. And so it's not necessarily unique anymore to be like, I feel like previously, if you were out in Dubai or living this lavish lifestyle away on holiday, you'd probably do really well on social media. Whereas because there's this huge influx, there's so many people doing it now, it's not necessarily like a one-way ticket to success. If you try to copy them and sacrifice everything to say do that as well, it wouldn't necessarily work.
I agree. There was actually a really funny case. I don't know if you saw this, but there was an Instagram user called Azra Mayan. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I think she's quite famous on Instagram. But she had a photo she uploaded a photo of her at the back of this like sick looking private jet. Yeah. And people figured out that it was a set that you can go and sit in. Right. And so that it's not an actual private jet. You sort of go in and it looks like you get a photo taken. That's so common, I swear. It's so common now, but I think she must have been one of the first people to sort of get exposed for it. And she had the caption as next stop, and she changed it to being like, there was a bracket, it was just a set, by the way. So she got called out for it. Got called out. And she updated the bio. But, you know, there's plenty of like times when influencers do lie to their audiences. Yeah, definitely. And misrepresent. But I think where it can get more dangerous, on top of what we've already spoken about as crypto scams, is, there's another type of scam where people like fake things to raise money, fundraisers. So I don't know if you ever saw this woman called Belle Gibson. She basically said that she was told that she had 4 months to live, and she sort of wrote a book, claimed all the proceeds would go to cancer-related charities, and it was found out that no money had been given to charity, and she didn't even have cancer.
Oh my God.
So she lied about this entire having cancer
that's
journey.
probably one of the worst scandals.
Which is insane. And people obviously on the internet, you know, like, how do you even check? If you see a fundraiser for someone saying, I've got cancer.
That's the other thing as well. It's so easy to set up those fundraisers. You know, when people put them in their bio now where they're like set a target and they're like raising money for such and such. I wonder if that's directly connected to the charity. Because if it's not, that would probably be very common, I think. I think there's so many cases of that.
Yeah. And then this is a similar fundraising story. So there was an Instagram couple called Another Beautiful Day Official. And they basically did like, you know, holidays and all that kind of stuff and made, made their life look great. But they had sort of caught on later on, so they weren't necessarily making a lot of money for it. And they put up a fundraiser requesting from their followers an $11,000 total donation to fund their lifestyle to get them a vacation to Africa.
Really?
And their followers lost it at them, just saying like, you're entitled, you're greedy. Like, how can you ask us to fund your lifestyle?
Yeah.
Like, you know, we pay for it by following it.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to, if you can, earn a living from it. But it's not our duty to raise
that's also interesting topic from the sense that now individuals and social media influencers are almost like companies now, where you have to maintain your level of integrity in order to like sustain sales or investment from your followers, because everyone's very much aware of like, you know, if a big brand's been involved in a scandal, their sales will massively decline. It's the same now with social media's individuals and influencers, because they've got such a presence and there's so many people that follow them. One scandal like that could just entirely ruin their career, and it's done.
Definitely. There was that FaZe guy who got dropped from FaZe Clan for the crypto scam.
Oh, really?
But there are a couple of other ones that I've got here that are quite interesting. So there was a fake weight loss scandal. So a bunch of UK influencers were caught endorsing a bogus weight reduction drink that they were told contained hydrogen cyanide.
Oh my days.
Literal cyanide, which can obviously end your life very easily. And I think before we get on to the next one, because there's another scandal, but the next one involves filters. And I think filters is an interesting one that, you know, not only can you sort of like scam your followers, but this is one where it can sort of, you know, I guess up until now we've been speaking about people who, you know, are lying about their life and what they have, but there's filters out here that can change the way you look so drastically, aren't there? Yeah,
I think we had a conversation before as well about how, I swear, TikTok, you don't even realize the filters are applied. So you'll be doing a live stream and you'll have like natural teeth whitener, like your jawline will be popping, your skin will be blemished, and you don't even know, you actually have to actively turn them off.
Yeah.
So I think people will almost judge, say, in the comments of someone who have quite clearly changed their look through filters, but half the time they probably don't even know. Like it's that easy, and it's kind of so natural that it's not plain and obvious to everyone.
Exactly. I'm quite a big fan of Instagram now. They've got if you use a filter, it tells you the filter and you can click try it.
Stories,
And I saw a girl do one on Instagram stories the other day and I was like, I know what you look like. And this looks so different. And I clicked try it, put it on my face. I look like a different person. I didn't recognize myself.
Girls who use the same filter all the time. I'm like, I wonder what I look like in that filter. And you try it on and you're like so tanned. You're like, your face structure completely changed.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just don't know how I feel if you're always doing stories with a filter on. But I guess the good thing about Insta, it does say so. Yeah,
I mean, that's where almost this whole thing comes from. That the idea of us doing Instagram reality is because there is a subreddit called Instagram Reality, and they sort of post people's Instagram photos and then perhaps a screenshot of them being caught on video or like a fan uploaded photo, and the lengths people go to change the way they look. Just it is crazy, isn't it? But then, so this is another interesting almost scam story, is that two Instagram stories for a company called Skinny Tan Limited, and one called Tanologist Tan. The Instagram stories had basically been using a filter that apparently misleadingly exaggerated the effect the product was capable of achieving. So people beforehand were going, I'm about to try this tan on, put the oil on and said, this is the after, but we're having like a strong tan filter. You just don't know. And like same with skin things, you know, there are so many companies out there that will go before and after, but the after one has had like a blemish remover.
Yeah, do you think then they've almost lost their weight a little bit, those adverts, because people can see through them? Because
Definitely.
it's even like within the fitness industry where people go on these crazy transformations, and they're obviously, say like online coaches, they're obviously only showing their good transformations, and half the time it's probably like not even something that they've coached them through that process. It's someone who's very experienced, and then they use that to sell to the rest of their audience. So I think almost they have lost some level of reputation where it will work for a lot of people, but I think most can sort of see those ads, or like teeth whitening, tan products. They are just going to use the best kind of transformations, and that's how they'll kind of generate more business going forward.
And it is just scary, like just not really knowing what is real and what isn't.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Just, you know, you can see an ad that a couple of years ago you'd be like, wow, their teeth are so much whiter. But now how advanced filters are to like change everything in real time, you know, you just don't know what what you're seeing, whether it's real or not.
One interesting case study actually that I kind of came across, it was more within the fitness industry on social media, where people were using this new editing app, CapCut, and you can basically manipulate your waistline, your shoulders, your chest, and so you can give yourself the most perfect proportions, which isn't even possible to change when going to the gym. Well, you can obviously change it to an extent, but people are literally like changing their bone structure. And I think that was an issue because people were then selling like fitness programs off the back of how they look. And that's where I think people almost lose integrity for that person, or lose trust in that person, because they're making more money off manipulating their followers.
Yeah, I mean, the second you figure out someone's lying to you about, you know, going, follow my routine, here's my body before and after, exactly. And they're lying.
I think it was this one guy who did get caught because he was getting a load of pictures with fans and things at fitness expos. And then people were like, hang on, when they saw pictures that other people were uploading, he just looked really normal. And when you compare that to his Instagram, his TikTok, it was literally like worlds apart. So I think that's when it does become an issue.
And actually the other thing, before we move on to sort of the next step in this topic, is false perception. So I think I perhaps see this a little bit more than some other people might, because I've got quite a lot of friends who do social media. Yeah. But there's quite a lot of people who can obviously fake having what they don't have. Yeah. But I think another really interesting aspect is people who do have the false thing that they're projecting is the fact that they're happy. And there are so many people out there that I know, not particularly like, you know, any of my close friends, but people I've met and come across and spoken to events and parties and all that kind of stuff, that, you know, you would look at their life and just think, I would do anything to trade my life with you because you have money, you're on all these crazy holidays, and they really are living the life that they project. Yeah. But deep down, they are miserable. And I think a lot of people might not realize what it can be like to perhaps every day live your life being like, I have to stay perfectly skinny, perfectly tanned. I have to touch up my photos to make myself feel happy. But like knowing that if you uploaded a picture of what your face really looked like, that it wouldn't get any views and likes and stuff. And so to kind of wrap all of that together to move on to the next thing, I think this general idea of people misrepresenting what their life is really like and how they really look, more in particular with how they really look, because obviously we've spoken about, you know, if people misrepresent how their life is, they chase it and end up getting scammed. The sort of major topic we're going to go into is sort of people wanting to correct their reality, you know, through all sorts of things. But essentially the stepping stone in between that is body dysmorphia. You know, I feel like I had it at one point when I started making my YouTube videos. The second I started showing myself on camera, I was quite spotty at the time. And I remember just thinking like I would do almost anything to stop being spotty. I even started using like concealer sometimes if I had a really big spot. But
did you start researching then? You were like, how can I sort of like panicking to the point where I can't go on camera unless everything's perfect?
It was almost, yeah, definitely. It almost made me a perfectionist because I'd look at everyone on YouTube and I'd be like, their skin and teeth and background and everything is perfect.
It almost makes you as like a different viewer to everyone else as well, because you're looking out for things that people don't really care about or notice, and you're probably watching someone else's video now going, oh my god, I wish I had skin like that, or I wish I looked like that. And people often just they'll watch your content for the entertainment.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't think people necessarily do care as much as possible. No. Actually, one quick thing before we move on was I found a really interesting trend lately that's been popping up more and more is people going like, here is my reality. So you'll get someone with a really big Instagram or TikTok following going, here's a photo of me unfiltered. I've got loads of spots, and people are applauding it, going like, so happy to see this. And people are almost applauding it so much that people are doing that as a trend now, just going like, you know, they're not posting their reality because they want people to see what their skin actually looks like. They're doing it because it's going to give them followers.
That is
and
true,
give them
actually. That is so true.
It's so interesting.
That's where it is also controversial, where people do just chase trends. And now it's cool to like have that really natural look. Or people will like say if they're in really good shape and they'll have this absolute trash diet and they'll be like, this is what I eat in a day. And people it's almost trying to project too much of a normality that's also not true, and it's also a fake reality.
Yeah, it's almost fake, going like, look how real I am, guys. And it's like, you're not wanting to show people how real you are. But yeah, anyway, so I think all of these things can obviously cause BDD, which is body dysmorphic disorder. Rough official numbers, guess how many people are affected by it? One in roughly how many?
Is that
actual disorder?
All age groups?
Just all age groups, genders, you know, everything, just all in. One in how many people?
I'd say high. I'd literally say 1 in 3.
I think it should. I would not be surprised if to some extent, everyone had this, but I think that's more perhaps anxiety or, you know, concern about how they look compared with reality. But the actual disorder itself affects about 1 in 50.
Diagnosed disorder. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that's more, but even 1 in 50 is quite high. But evidence suggests that in recent decades, body image dissatisfaction in general, and by extension, extreme body image disturbances like BDD, have been increasing, likely due to social media and cultural changes. So I don't think it's going to be a surprise to anyone that all of these things are going up and up, you know, with how, and especially how accessible it is to everyone to have these filters and touch-ups. You know, back in the day, obviously, front cover of magazines, you know, they were great editors sort of rubbing out everyone's flaws. But nowadays, like, you know, everyone can have it. And so I've actually got quite an interesting graphic here talking about what impacts the way we feel about our bodies, because we were actually considering getting a guest on for this episode, weren't we, to sort of speak to perhaps a girl on what social media is like for them and the impact it has on their perhaps mental health and body image. But I think we'll definitely do that at some point in the future, perhaps have a girl on to focus on what that's like for them. But for now, just to show the sort of difference, so I've got a graphic that says what impacts how we feel about our bodies. Can you guess what the number one thing is for women?
Or social media?
Yeah, social media is the number one for women. And that's 23% of women say that social media impacts the way they feel about our bodies. In comparison with men, it's only 17%. It's still very high. But for men, the most important thing for them, can you guess? Like, what has an impact on the way that they feel about their body, whether they feel good or bad about it?
It's still through some level of comparison. I don't know.
Surprisingly not.
Is it to do with sport?
It's
and
their
famous
partners.
Celebrities? No way.
So for men, the most significant thing that impacts the way they feel about their bodies is about how their partner feels about it. So if their partner's saying, I love the way you look and stuff, that's the most important thing for them. And social media is second at 17%. For women, their significant other is third, and that's 17%. So that's a similar percentage. But women also, TV and movies are 20% impact them more.
That's second.
That's second. So it's interesting to see the difference. So with men, it's significant other first at 21%. And then social media and TV and movies is 17 and 16%. And then there's a bunch of other things like family, internet interactions, friends themselves looking in the mirror, their health and society. But I think that was really interesting that there definitely is a difference. And I think perhaps with women, there is perhaps more pressure to look perfect on social media than men. But evidently, it's not a lot different. You know, that there is a lot of pressure. Yeah.
What? So, but why do you think it's more? Why do you think it's highly pressurized for women over men?
I think that's something that either when we bring on a guest to speak about, but obviously on YouTube, get involved in the comments if you're a woman and you sort of, you know.
I don't necessarily personally think it's more, but I think, as you said, it's just different things make them insecure. So that's the difference. It's not necessarily that women are more insecure than guys, because there's so many guys that are, but it potentially be from different avenues and different reasoning.
So I think this is where we go on to you know, we've spoken about sort of, you know, people faking things the way they look and stuff. And obviously that can trigger a lot of anxiety and BDD and all that kind of stuff. And so now let's move into the sort of knock-on effects where, you know, people seek out to change their reality to match what they see online in terms of cosmetic surgery. So, I mean, there's a million things we can talk about here. I mean, let's start with us, for example. Like, you know, I've had my teeth whitened professionally.
Yeah, I had braces recently.
You had braces recently?
Yeah.
So what caused you to have braces? What made you go, because your teeth weren't that bad.
No, they weren't. And they didn't even change much because I took them off early as well because I hated them.
Did you?
Yeah. But I got them just because, I don't know, because I feel like maybe social media and other people were reasoning, like you see a lot of people with kind of fresh gnashes, fresh from Turkey.
Yeah.
But I just kind of, it was something I guess I was mildly insecure about, not really that badly, but it's something you can change quite easily. So I think as well, I briefly mentioned it to my dentist. I was like, I'm thinking about potentially getting braces. And then he was like, absolutely, you should do it. Like, he was like, not pressuring me, but they're not actually allowed to tell you to have braces or not.
Oh, wow,
it's apparently
really?
like, I don't know whether it's their sort of regulator that says they can't because of that whole insecurity thing. But the moment I said it, he was like, let's do it. And so I think him being like so proactive about it, I was like, okay, it's happening now. And then, yeah, I'm pleased I did it, to be fair.
How much money did you spend on it?
I think it must have been couple grand or well over $1,000.
Oh, wow. You spent good money on it.
It was like, like obviously monthly, and then it's more like the procedure and hours of putting them on and off. Actual, like, whilst they're on, I don't think is an expensive procedure. But I think a lot of people obviously get an Invisalign and that's even more expensive. And that is a lot. What's interesting because they're changing the way they look, but kind of on the sly and without people realizing. And that's the whole, people will pay a premium just so that they don't have to go through the phase of wearing like metal on their mouth. Yeah,
it's crazy. I think even for me, like, I was never insecure about my teeth. But for some reason, the second I started doing social media in particular, I was like, God, if I'm going to be showing my face on camera and stuff, I want to look as perfect as possible. And was like, I'm going to spend however much money it takes to make my teeth a little bit whiter. Well, I don't even think they were that yellow, and it's crazy.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing as well. If your job is social media, you don't necessarily want to go through the transition phase of having braces or, I don't know, going through a procedure that takes a bit of time, say like a hair transplant where you're like bald for half a year. You've still got to turn up and film every week whilst looking like that. And people almost don't want to go through that procedure, and that's why it encourages shortcuts, and people just want instant results, and therefore people will then go to Turkey for veneers, so it's like just instant, or find any way to just shortcut the process.
I agree. Like, teeth whitening for me, it was a 1 hour session. It was very uncomfortable. I was sat underneath this chair with this like gum shield in my mouth, but an hour later and a couple of days after it had settled in, you know, I had a few days of eating only white food, but other than that, it was instant. I think if there are certain things like, I mean, I don't know if you've thought about it before, but I definitely think, like, you know, if I had a terrible receding hairline, in 5 years, if I start going bald, there's no doubt in my mind that I'd get a hairline transplant.
I'd consider a transplant.
And because it's getting more popular, it definitely is becoming more socially acceptable.
Yeah.
But I think that I definitely do feel anxious about potentially having to walk around with a shaved head and having people know that I got a hair transplant.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying, that transition is what people almost don't want to go through. So it's either you don't face your insecurities or you can do something about it. And I think there's always that debate, isn't it, where it's like, oh no, just love who you are, be yourself. But if you can change something about yourself, then and make small improvements here and there, as long as you're not like reconstructing your entire face, then I don't really see the issue.
Yeah, I don't think teeth is necessarily a too bad one. And quite a lot of people, I mean, even famous people, I mean, you know, do you remember what Ronaldinho used to look like compared with what he looks like now? I don't know if you've seen any photos, but Ronaldinho, obviously one of the greatest footballers of all time.
To be fair, I can only picture him back in the day, not now.
Really?
Yeah, so that's how I envisage him.
How do you picture his teeth?
Like buck teeth, yeah.
So he used to have what people would consider buck teeth. They'd stick out everywhere. Yeah. He had big gums, but he had his gums reduced and his teeth completely straightened.
Yeah.
So he's actually got a perfectly... It's even weird. I can even feel myself saying his smile is fine now. It's perfect now. And just sort of like, even just the way I see his teeth before is, you know, I'm attracted to using negative language.
You're attracted to Ronaldinho?
Maybe a little bit. No. But it is strange, like, you know, and Cristiano Ronaldo, the exact same. When he rocked up at Man United for the first time, he had wonky teeth that were all over the place, and now has perfect teeth.
Well, I think
it's so common.
That ties as well to our topic previously when we started about people craving and desiring money so much that they'll project these lifestyles or do these scams. And a big reason why people crave that, literally earning more money, is that you can actually now buy your looks almost now. You
that's
can.
So true.
If you think about a lot of footballers that aren't necessarily gifted in the kind of natural looks department, but they'll kind of get new teeth, hair transplant.
Wayne Rooney hair.
Like Suarez, like Rob Holding's hair
Rob
transplant.
Holding's hairline transplant was crazy.
Like I think that doesn't help. So people almost think, oh, I just need to get rich because all aspects of my life will change. Not only my lifestyle, but my self-confidence, how I feel. And you were saying, in contrast, that people aren't necessarily happy.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting you brought up the thing. There's kind of a saying that's developing online at the moment. You're not ugly, you're poor. And just saying like, and it's kind of like a recognition. I mean, have you seen the original photos of the Kardashians? Yeah. What they used to look like? And they're so different. And they've all now got perfect noses, cheeks, jawlines, everything. Certainly that's another one where there's an Instagram versus reality where sort of, you know, a lot of the Kardashians get papped in public and they kind of go, gosh, they've got bumpier skin than they show online and their lips don't look as natural.
More insecure. Yeah.
Exactly. And they go back for more and it spirals. An interesting one I saw, have you seen David Beckham before and after?
The hair
He's actually had loads of work, hair, but skin.
I saw his hair. No, not
so
skin.
In his final year at PSG, he was very wrinkly. And a couple of years later, and he's got this flawless, smooth skin. And you don't realise how much work has been done.
But someone like that, he's just always been known for his good looks.
Exactly,
He was my idol growing up. And everyone kind of idolises the way his looks, his kind of feel. And he obviously got a lot of modelling work. And so he's a case where he makes a lot of money and his whole brand is being good looking.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to almost judge without being in that guy's shoes, without being in his shoes. And he must feel like he has to do certain stuff.
Yeah.
Being in the mainstream media must be so different, even like 100-fold times what people feel on who are like social media influencers or just getting judgment through their friends. But imagine that on a scale of like millions of people globally.
Yeah, because he was an icon. I mean, I remember if he changed his hairstyle from a mohawk to a shaved head or blonde or whatever, everyone would copy it. But that is true. I mean, like, it's hard to feel too bad for the Kardashians, isn't it? But it would feel awful waking up the next day in the front of like one of these magazines is like, look how disgusting they actually look. Yeah, and there have been some of those magazines that have gone hard on celebrities, going like beached whales spotted at the beach, and it's just a normal celebrity trying to enjoy their beach holiday. And their front page of the magazine for looking fat. And I think
you're right though, people find it hard to relate. Like really, their life isn't that bad.
But then if you're one of the people who have the same body type, you know, if someone's getting roasted online for having a slightly bigger belly or a wider nose or their lips don't look great, it's not only going to affect them, it's going to affect everyone who's looking on social media going like, that kind of sucks. My best mate's just posted going, ha ha ha, look how big this person's nose is.
Potentially, but I also think that the people writing the comments could probably have a lot of like similar attributes, but they're behind a screen. They don't mind when they're dishing out the kind of the banter, but when someone's like on the receiving end, it's different. So I don't think people see someone getting roasted for a particular feature or their like body shape and think, oh, that's me.
I don't know. I do. I think I felt it a couple of times myself.
Really?
Yeah.
What, through other people?
I think I've heard people that don't like PewDiePie go, ha, he's got such a big nose. And I think I've got a very similar nose to Felix. I'm just like, oh, damn, like when they're taking the
really?
Yeah, I'm just like, oh, I wonder if people are watching my videos going the same thing.
Or if they like someone's like 5'5" and there's loads of girls online roasting like small guys. Do you think they would feel...
Undeniably, there'll be guys at the same height. So I think there's a lot. Going back to... So we've kind of spoken about teeth and I guess kind of hair. Nose jobs is a really interesting one because that's quite a big one. And I didn't realise until he came to United, you know, Casemiro had a nose job, like quite a significant one. So if you look at Casemiro back in the day, compared with now, his nose is a fraction of the size.
That is something as well I feel like people do subtly. because the transition's instant, or you can get like filler now. People will like just reconstruct their nose like almost instantly. They won't go through the full procedure. So that will go quite unnoticed, I think.
Yeah.
So do you think, say you went through cosmetic surgery or did something that literally no one else would even notice the difference? Like you would have to say zoom in on your nose or like pull up a before and after to notice the difference. But it made yourself feel better. Do you think then that's kind of okay?
You know what? I'm going to actually expose myself here, and I wasn't entirely sure if I was going to talk about this on this podcast.
Yeah.
But I don't even know if I've told you. So when growing up, I had a little mole on my cheek.
Yeah, I know this.
And
you have told me.
I've told you
the story.
Oh, I know this. I thought you said, I noticed.
I remember when you had a plaster.
No, I'm joking. Oh, yeah, of course. So I never really spoke about it.
I know that mole.
But it wasn't. I always used to tell my parents growing up as a kid, like, I really want to get this little mole removed on my cheek. And it was only when I started shaving that I would cut it and I'd be like, oh, I just need to get rid of this now. And it was quite light. It was quite small, but it was like a defined thing on my cheek. And one day, like it was, probably a year into doing YouTube videos. So if you go back to my old YouTube videos, you can see it on my cheek and it disappears one day.
That is something no one would notice. I genuinely don't think anyone would notice.
Chris, obviously one of my best mates, after I got it done and took the plaster off, he didn't say anything. And I was like, did you not notice?
No, I wouldn't notice. It's only because you told me.
I had this little mole removed, and it was fairly expensive. It was about $1,000, and all they did was kind of like laser it away. I wore a plaster for a couple of weeks. I didn't upload any YouTube videos. I uploaded one photo to my Instagram with me and Mark Goldbridge at that charity football match. Yeah. And there's a plaster on my cheek. But other than that, and there was never a comment about it. And I just go, no one probably would have noticed. No one probably ever looked at me and thought, well, I hope not. Was like, oh, that's really ugly.
Yeah.
But for me, I just had this thing where I was like, it made me feel better.
That's when it's fine. Like I've also had a mole removed. I had one like on my waistline.
No way.
Yeah, but
cosmetically was that?
It was just through a GP in general.
As in like for looks, or was it like
cancerous,
was it catching?
It was for looks, yeah. Like no one would see it.
Yeah.
It was like it was on my waistline, like below my boxers. So
I see.
You wouldn't even see it if I had my top off. But I just wanted to get it removed. And then got it done. So I think it's perfectly fine if it's just for you, but potentially it does become an issue when you develop new insecurities because of other people, or maybe through a comment online. Like you could get a comment on a YouTube video and you could have like a new insecurity that you never had before. So I guess, when it's like never ending and you're just chasing that constantly, then it's kind of an issue.
Because that was what initially made me just feel bad about my skin and being spotty.
Yeah.
I get loads of comments every day that I'll read and I'll be like, that's nice. But it was one comment that just goes, nice acne, bro.
Oh, really?
And for the next week, I was just looking in the mirror like, I need to get rid of this. I was like, should I go on Roaccutane and stuff? And it is crazy how much one little comment can set you off. But going back to nose jobs, because this is interesting. So I found a fact that so you were saying nose jobs and cosmetic surgery, they've been around for a lot longer than social media. And I definitely don't want people to think that we're going, social media is the sole, it might be the main driver of cosmetic procedures, but it's been around a lot longer before that. Do you know how long cosmetic surgery has been around? So I'll give you an interesting one.
I could guess.
So the earliest evidence for rhinoplasties, which is nose jobs, can be found in texts from roughly when? Can you give me a rough year?
I don't think that long ago.
Roughly.
I would say
the first ever evidence for it.
I was going to say like 90s. Genuinely.
Back a long way before that. Guess
Really?
again.
I didn't think it was a thing before then.
So the earliest evidence for rhinoplasties can be found in texts from ancient Egypt, dated around 3000 BCE.
Seriously?
Ancient Egypt. So the ancient Egyptians were having, there's evidence that they were having nose jobs. Isn't that insane?
But they surely don't have the resources. Like, how would they possibly, were they literally like drilling their nose?
Probably maybe just like scrape it up.
That's mental.
Who knows? I would love to know how they did it, but it goes back a long time. It's not just the modern era of magazines and social media, but I definitely think that's helped. And then, so who would you say is the most, there's a very obvious famous case of nose jobs. That's Michael Jackson, right?
Oh, right. Yeah.
So this is really interesting. So, he got his first nose job in 1979.
Really?
He said that he actually had it because he was rehearsing a very complicated dance move for the Off the Wall album. and he fell from stage and broke his nose. He went on to claim, like decades later, I've had no plastic surgery on my face, just my nose. It helped me breathe better so I can hit higher notes. So he's basically saying that,
improved performance.
Yeah, it was improved performance. But I think that is an extreme case of body dysmorphia, isn't it? I mean, if you think about all the things that he had, he had his skin whitened.
Yeah,
Have you seen his chin? I've never seen this from anyone else. Michael Jackson had a cleft chin implant. So he had the little dent in his chin placed in. I didn't clock it until I saw before and after.
So all the man with the cleft chins were just celebrating that day.
Yeah.
That's the knock-on effect the other way, where if people getting like, changing some sort of structure towards what you already have, because it does come in trends as well.
It doesn't it?
And if
Yeah.
you're always chasing the trend, then you just can't keep up. You're just constantly changing things around. And I think he must be someone that just had so much money, but just got bored of the way he looked and just constantly wanted to change it.
Yeah, I agree. And this is really interesting. So this is a fairly well-known theory, but I just thought it was really interesting to bring up anyway. So apparently his dad subjected him to a lot of verbal abuse, but repeatedly told him that he had a big nose and made fun of his adolescent acne. Michael said that sometimes when his father walked into a room, he would be so afraid of him that he would vomit. So like with those kind of pressures, you can look at him and think that he had this kind of evident disorder, but who knows if he would have had that if he wasn't subjected to that.
That's
sort
true.
of like.
So it doesn't actually stem from, say, mass judgment of his fans and the public. It could literally be as simple as his own family, and his own upbringing, and that shows that you don't necessarily have to have a big profile to have those insecurities or want to make changes. It can literally be one comment your dad made when you're like 7-8 years old.
Yeah, abusive relationship with family members, partners.
Yeah.
If you've got someone that's constantly negging you, just saying like, oh, I really don't like this gross feature, taking the mick out of you, however deep it goes, all you need is one person to really set you off. So that's quite a lot of guy stuff. We'll get into a couple of things actually gym related a bit later on, but we've spoken about a lot of the guy stuff like hair transplant, teeth, which is a bit more general, gender neutral. But with girls these days, I think female cosmetic surgery is on the rise so much. Like how many girls these days get their lips done, get boob augmentations, BBLs is a really big thing. Yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on all that kind of stuff?
Well, I think that's kind of come about through just the cost now. Like people can get lip fillers for like a few £100s. So if you're that desperate, and you don't even have to be that rich, you could literally get out a credit card and get some new lips. Do you know what I mean? So I think the accessibility and the fact that it is so cheap now, it just caused a huge rise in cosmetic surgeries. I think social media obviously will have a huge play in that as well, in the sense that most kind of influencers, obviously bikini models, will have like breast implants. They'll have kind of that perfect like hourglass figure, and so often it is unattainable to achieve naturally, and so you just have to go down that route to be able to look like these people.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, if you're on social media every day and you're looking at girls with a certain shape boobs and like plumped up lips, you've got smaller lips and smaller boobs or shaping differently, like it doesn't surprise me at all that so many people are like, if I can change this for a couple of grand, why would I not save up and do it?
That's where I feel like, I don't know if you know if there's any data on this, but I feel like females will get more done than guys on, say, like a normal level, where it's not necessarily some celebrity or influencer, just day-to-day people. Like you'll be walking into the office in like a 9 till 5 job environment, and I wouldn't be surprised if, say, fairly high percentage of people, particularly women, have had, say, lip fillers. That is like so common now.
Yeah, in the corporate world where they're like, where there's a decent amount of money, I completely agree.
Whereas guys, I don't necessarily feel like they have as much pressure in that sense, but maybe that's to come.
Yeah, and so this is where it gets potentially darker. You've got a lot of people making all of these changes. It's a lot of money, but it doesn't always go right. So one really interesting example of a woman. So there was a woman called Hang Myoku. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong as well, so apologies in advance. But she was actually, she almost certainly had body dysmorphia, but she was denied further cosmetic treatments due to her unnatural obsession with having silicone filters in her face. So she ended up taking matters into her own hands and resorted to injecting black market silicone and even cooking oil into her face herself. And if you look she was doing it herself, putting cooking oil into her face.
Right.
And you would not believe, if you're listening and you want to Google this after, look at what she looked like before and after, because she was gorgeous before.
Gorgeous.
And afterwards, her face was inflated.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't believe it. It was like a character out of a horror movie.
Do you think these people then, they look in the mirror and they actually think they look good?
I think it gets to an obsessive point. So
you become addicted to the surgery rather than the outcome.
You do, and I think there's no way these people are looking at themselves. I've got a couple of examples. I don't know if you recognise any of these names and what they look like, but Mickey Rourke, Joan Rivers, the Bogdanov twins. Have you seen them?
No.
Donatella Versace and Katie Price obviously is a good example. Yeah. But like, you look at them and you can tell they've had so much work done, and they almost look like aliens.
Yeah.
And it's so inflated. And I wonder if that's the disorder going like, you need more, you need more, you need more.
Yeah.
Or whether they look at themselves every day and they almost think it looks normal. And so they go, oh, I can have more. And they actually don't realise how extreme they look.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I think your baseline changes. Yeah. So you look at yourself in the mirror and then you become accustomed to the way you look, the size of your lips or like whatever. And then you see someone with bigger lips or bigger boobs and you're like, oh, I need to upgrade. Mm. I need them bigger. You almost get addicted to that process rather than what actually looks good or what you feel most self-confident in.
Because it definitely, with things like me and you getting our teeth, potential hairline, skin and stuff, that's one level, but there's evidently a big scale where it can go too far. I don't know if you've seen any of these others, but there's a guy who spent £100,000 to look like Justin Bieber.
Really?
And he just doesn't look a thing like him.
There's so many cases of that, I swear, where people will literally try and look identical to a celebrity and couldn't be further from the truth.
£20,000 someone spent to look like David Beckham.
Yeah, I think I've seen that one.
It just doesn't look a thing like him. £100,000 to look like Kim Kardashian.
Yeah.
And it's when it gets obsessive that it can get quite dangerous. But, that woman was an example of, someone injecting stuff that goes wrong. You're obviously in the fitness industry. There must be plenty of examples of people injecting all sorts of stuff.
To be fair, now you say it, there's actually probably loads of examples, but one distinct one I remember of someone injecting synthol into their arm. So that's basically like you were saying with some sort of natural oil just to kind of inflate your arm. So it's not even going to make you stronger. It's not like more aesthetic. You're not going to be like in proportion to the rest of your body. You literally just got these balloon shaped inflated arms. And I think there's one person who increased the size of his arms to 27 inches.
Crikey.
Which, to put that into perspective, like an average human thigh circumference is around 20 inches, a male thigh.
Right.
So literally, like, he could have been kind of like you and I, pretty normal shaped, like average kind of size, but just have these balloon arms. And that comes back to your point where other people would look at that and be like, you look awful, mate. Like, what are you doing? But he obviously feels the pressures and feels like he just wants massive biceps to the point where he cares more about the metric of the size of his arms and walk into every room and know that he's got the biggest biceps rather than looking at himself and like objectively thinking, how can I improve through cosmetic surgery, which I think most people do.
So what happened to him? Is he just... I think I recognise the case. Is that the man whose arms exploded?
Well, yeah. Did he end up in hospital or something?
I think it got to the point where something in his arm
addictive.
popped, and it leaked. Yeah. And actually, the fellas, I don't know if you watched the fellas episode on it, but they had a woman on who evidently had the same thing. She must have had body dysmorphia, a disorder, because her lips were massive, and she had the same thing with her boobs, where she just wanted them bigger popped. And bigger. And one day one of them popped, and there's footage of her. She recorded, I think, put it on her Instagram story. Yeah. Of literally one massive boob and one deflated boob with a hole in it.
Really?
And it's mind-boggling to look at. But it's like, it's, when it gets extreme, it can get so dangerous.
When it gets to extreme to the point where you have genuine health concerns and you're risking your life just to look a certain way, then that's problematic. It's just a bit strange, isn't it? That's when it's a mental condition.
But and almost. It's actually funny because that's definitely a route where it can get dangerous. but it can even get dangerous for just the normal person going for normal procedures. You know, there's this big influx of people now who go to Turkey because you can get it done cheaper there. And, you know, you were saying like how normal it is for certain people to have, you know, get veneers or get their boobs done or get a BBL out in Turkey or, you know, get a hair transplant, and it's cheaper. And there's, you know, plenty of people who, fair play to them, I can completely understand why they would, but the risk is crazy.
Well, I think it must be dependent where you go, though. There's places in Turkey that must be quite unsafe, and people obviously do it for the cost. Like there's a lot,
save money.
There's a lot of places where you can get it done very cheap, but it comes to a point where you've got to kind of analyze the risk involved. And if you're seeing these kind of horror stories, then it's kind of, you've got to question whether it's worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, you know, because you can get obviously plenty of these things done in the UK, but it's more expensive.
Yeah.
But I actually saw again a TikTok recently, I don't know if you saw it, of a guy who had veneers put in.
Yeah, I saw that.
And they were just cracked in half. Yeah. And he was just going, I'm at the end of my tether. My mental health is drained from it because, you know, I speak and they fall out. I can't eat anything.
Well, he's completely deconstructed his own teeth. So he's because a lot of the procedures, you knock out your own teeth. And I think when there's no going back, that's when it's scary. Say like with veneers, I think you can get some composite bonds or some procedures where you're kind of just bulking out your current teeth or filling in gaps. But when you're literally shaving it down, then putting in some form of like gum shield, that then when it does go wrong, there's literally no going back. You can't do anything about it.
Yeah, and you get dentists all the time saying, if you're young, don't go get these perfect veneers because, you know, 10 to 20 years later, you know, that they inevitably are going to cost a lot of money to redo, and sort of, you know, they're going to need so much work done that you're sort of, you know, down the line, you're just going to have to get so much money to fix it. But Turkey is a real one. So I've got a couple of horror stories to talk about, just so people, you know, can know how bad it can get, but also a lot of statistics and stuff. So the British Association of Aesthetic Plastic Surgeons, BAAPS, and I'll call them BAAPS from now on, over the past 4 years, 324 people have required treatment back in the UK for serious complications for cosmetic surgery abroad, which doesn't sound like that much, but apparently it's growing a lot. But interestingly, guess what percentage of them came from Turkey?
Oh, but it must be a lot. It must be a lot.
Yes.
40%?
100%.
Oh, really?
So every single person who applied for cosmetic surgery to fix this cosmetic surgery,
does
100% of it came from Turkey.
Off going to Turkey then? If
yeah,
you were going
it
to
does.
Get anything done?
I now think if I end up with a receding hairline, that's probably the only thing I would do, is if I end up bald.
Yeah, but
I would get it done, but I get it done in the UK.
But even with that, you saying that's the only thing you do, that's where people always say that, and they get addicted to whatever procedure, then they see something else. Because I don't think anyone is just not insecure about anything on themselves. I think that's normal to be insecure about stuff, and so you could just literally go on forever. I think that's when you get to these extreme cases where people will then have huge kind of health implications. And
maybe it's one where, you know, once something's better, you want to go on to the next one. Yeah. You know, I always thought I had a big focus on my spots, and then obviously as I finished puberty and sort of, I think there are a couple of obviously skincare routines, things that I improved, and I'm much less spotty now, that I then was like, oh, maybe, you know, this mole on my face, maybe that can go. And now I'm like, oh, exactly. Maybe I can perfect my hairline, about that. And maybe I can whiten my teeth. Yeah. Maybe if I go bald and correct my hairline, maybe I go, oh, actually, maybe I could get my nose could be a bit smaller, or my jawline could be a bit sharper. Yeah. Who knows where it stops? But funnily enough, breast surgery augmentation procedures account for 25% of those complaints. But yeah, these figures are only based on data from the BAAPS members. So they say that the scale of the issue is likely far worse. Yeah. But I've got a couple of horror stories to tell you about it going really wrong. Just to kind of make people, if you're listening, go like, maybe I should do this the right way, or make sure. And I'll finish with a few tips from the association that go, you need to do this if you're going to go abroad and you're not going to do it at home. So in August 2020, a primary school teacher, Michelle Williams, decided to undergo a simple nose job in Turkey. But the mother of one surgery didn't go as planned. She suffered severe complications and has been left in a permanent vegetative state. She's unable to speak, walk, or do anything for herself. The 47-year-old returned to the UK on a private ambulance flight and now lives in a care facility. Jeez. Isn't that crazy? Just thinking, I'm going to go for a nose job.
Yeah.
And you think, what's the worst that could happen? It doesn't look great and I can get someone to fix it again.
Yeah.
She's now in a vegetative state. Isn't that
Do you know
terrifying?
What caught, like, because you often think with these things, as you said, getting a nose job, the worst that could happen is that you need another one, or like your nose is like constructed in a way that you're not happy with in terms of like an aesthetic point of view. But I guess people you don't really think about actual health concerns in terms of procedures like that. You wouldn't think, no, I could potentially be flying back on an emergency plane to hospital.
Yeah, I mean, dangerous I'm guessing it was possibly a bacterial or a viral infection.
Oh yeah, true.
That deteriorated her brain, and all you need is one of those.
Yeah.
Another one, a lady called Michelle Heath. She spent a decade working hard for her dream body. You know, fair play to her. She didn't get, I think she did actually get a bit of liposuction to help out a little bit. But, you know, she worked hard in the gym. She lost 10 stone, but she couldn't shift the loose skin. So she paid around £4,173 for a package deal, which included a leg and back lift, flight, and a 5-night stay in Turkey. She returned to Northern Ireland with open wounds and serious infections, requiring 2 further surgeries and skin grafts. She has claimed that the liposuction was... This is what's even craziest. She claimed that liposuction was carried out without her permission on her while she was under, as well as a Brazilian bum lift, which she didn't ask for when she woke up that was given to her. And she wasn't aware that these things had been given to her until the 3rd day of her recovery.
That's wild.
Which is crazy. Can you imagine going and getting a procedure and waking up and they've done more than you asked for? Yeah,
I mean, that's bizarre, right?
So bizarre.
But I mean, is that some kind of like miscommunication? Because I also feel like kind of ties in with our conversation earlier about kind of influencers getting these free holidays or free trips. But now they'll promote these kind of surgeries that they'll get, say, a free hair transplant or something to promote it, but they're probably not the safest practice. They're probably not like insured to the best or like maximum they could be. And so there's a lot of risk in that sense where people will promote things because they paid for it, and it will be highly, highly risky.
That's so true. And people can promote all sorts of stuff if they have money thrown at them. I actually had one from Turkey.
What?
So I had
someone said you needed a hair transplant.
No, well, kind of. So
really?
So a cosmetic surgery clinic reached out to me and said, we'll pay you whatever, 5-10 grand.
No way.
You can come stay in a hotel, completely free, stunning hotel. We'll pay for your flights and pay for whatever surgeries you want. We'll give you hairline, teeth. I was like, my hairline going already.
Was there a moment where you considered it then?
To be fair, I was like, if I can have a nice, if they can give because if someone said I can bring my hairline further forward.
Did you research the
whiter teeth?
place?
I didn't. I ended up just going like, this isn't for me yet. Like maybe down the line.
Because that's funny you say that. Actually, I'll often see people who I like think they definitely don't need that procedure, but they'll get it done because they'll either get it free or even in your case get paid.
They might get paid. Yeah,
get paid to do it, which is wild.
Yeah, it is wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
Crazy. And so I'll show you one more example, and then we'll kind of talk about like why Turkey in particular might be so bad and the things you can do if you're considering going out there. So the third horror story I've got is a woman called Angela Perkins. So she paid £8,000 for a facelift in Turkey that went disastrously wrong. The 57-year-old has been left with a disfigured face and is unable to close her right eye because of the procedure.
Wow.
Her name has now been changed, but she faces a payment of £30,000 for multiple surgeries to correct her eyes, ears, cheek and neck.
That's crazy.
You can spend all this time saving up £8,000 or however much it is for the surgery, come back and have to spend a hell of a lot more to get it corrected.
That's true. That actually reminds me as well. I remember there was someone at work in the office, right, who she was getting the corrective eye surgery. So like she didn't want to wear contact lenses or glasses anymore. So she got this corrective like laser eye surgery, which costs a lot, and it ended up going wrong. And I think she had ages off work. She had to take such a long time off work. Came back in after that period with like bloodshot eyes, had risk of going blind, and then end up again having to pay more money to get it corrected. I think she ended up getting it covered by insurance, but still, you often think something like that. That's not even aesthetic reasons. It's just to see better. Yeah. But there's still like risks involved.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Turkey and the horror stories from over there, but
that was I think Jersey or UK.
Yeah, that's not to say that it's not the same in the UK. Medical malpractice is one of the biggest killers, I think, if not the biggest killer in the US. It's definitely up there among the top. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same for the US. But, going under these things is, it's not even you can go under general anesthetic and lose your life from that, which is scary. So, with all of these things, so a lot of these associations are pushing, saying, if you can, save your money and don't get it done in Turkey. But if you are, there's a few things you can do. But essentially, apparently, even with the strong cases, with a lot of these cases that I've just spoken about, it's actually really hard for a foreigner to file a case in Turkey for medical negligence. So a lot of the times you pay in cash. So there's not necessarily...
So they think about these things.
They think about these things. They apparently also get you to sign large waivers, which cover a wide range of things that just go, because if you're going like, I'm getting my hair transplant, whatever, how many people actually either pay a lawyer or read through a waiver to know what they're actually signing on for?
I feel like a lot of people just rush it as well. They kind of think,
sign the contract.
I want to do this. I found this surgery. It was recommended through Instagram or something, and they just go for it.
Yeah.
You don't really think into it. But again, with these things, I think we've spoken about this. Like now it's been around for quite a while and it is kind of normal. You'd like to think that the risk is reduced. Whereas back in the day when people were first going to Turkey to get these procedures, it was a lot higher risk, I feel.
Yeah. And also the other thing which we've kind of mentioned is that a lot of them come with package deals.
Yes.
And so rather than you just signing up with a clinic and saying, I'm going to pay for this, with a package deal, you're often not in direct contact with the clinics. You haven't signed the contract where they directly owe you any kind of, duty of care or anything like that. And it makes it really complicated. And apparently even with a strong case, it can take years to be seen in front of Turkish courts.
Yeah.
And just with all of these things, you've got to be so careful. So, if you're going to go out to Turkey to get it done, a lot of the experts are saying, don't pay in cash, pay via bank transfer. Don't necessarily sign large waivers, have a lawyer look at it. Make sure you know what you're signing before you sign it. Don't pay in package deals. And then another big thing, and a lot of these, the actual, what are they called? BAAPS are trying to make it law, but they're saying if you're going to go with one, take out insurance, because you essentially want to know that if you've saved up your £5,000 for whatever, transplant, whatever you're going to go have, that you've got insurance. That means if it goes wrong, the insurance company can pay for it, because otherwise you could get whacked with major bills.
Yeah, definitely.
That are going to bankrupt you, if you haven't got the insurance. So,
well, that's a risk as well. If people are saving maybe few years in as opposed to a house deposit, they're literally like, I want this so bad to the point where I'll sacrifice my savings for a couple of years to pay for the procedure. And then if it does go wrong and you're not insured, you're effed basically.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all of the major topics in terms of cosmetic surgery. Just going like, as we've spoken about, social media is not real life. It's not the only contributing factor, but it's maybe getting worse. These things are getting cheaper, so the prices of these surgeries and stuff are actually rising, but they're rising slower than inflation. Whereas the majority of healthcare procedures are actually growing at a faster rate than inflation. So it's becoming more accessible. It's becoming more normalized.
Yeah, who knows? We'll come back episode 3 with fresh pair of lashes.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine season 3 and we're sitting here with perfectly straight nose.
Different.
Yeah,
who
knows? But essentially, I would say for me personally, the main takeaway from this would be, social media isn't real life. But there's plenty of triggers for all of these things. From the NHS website, a lot of this can not only come from social media, but you can get BDD, sort of body dysmorphia, from a range of things, not just looking at social media, but chemical imbalances in the brain, trauma from the past, genetics. And essentially, I would just want to say, if you're going to get it done, get any work done, get it done properly, go through insurance. But essentially, you definitely don't need these things. And it's been said a million times, but you are just fine the way you are, reassure your friends, look for reassurance from your partner, because that's obviously a really big thing. But, if you do feel like it's going deeper and you are suffering from BDD and you're from the UK, go see your GP. You might be treated by the GP, they can help you, but they might also refer you to a mental health specialist. and you can get further assessment and treatment. It can be very difficult to, seek help for this, but it's important to remember that you have nothing to feel ashamed or embarrassed about. And genuinely, if you go see your GP, you can get help. And if you don't necessarily want to take those steps yet, and maybe it's just that you feel anxious about the way you look, taking time off social media, focusing on mindfulness, prioritizing improving your mental health, and just taking a break. All things that can certainly help. They might not necessarily fix anything, they might not help, but they're all certainly things that can help you. And if you need the help, it is there. Go try and get it, I'd say.
Definitely. And just a final thank you for watching this second episode. I really enjoyed it. The first episode of talking about a kind of controversial topic. Feel like as a general whole and in summary, just chat to your mates and make sure that you're not just kind of like in your bedroom scrolling through social media, because that, as we discussed, can make matters worse. Yeah.
And definitely, if you're following accounts where you're going, I'm realizing these people are using filters, they're lying about this, they're untrustworthy, unfollow them and follow people that make you feel good about yourself.
Like Fred ArthurTV.
Like Fred ArthurTV, we're always going to be real with you. But I think certainly it's a great place to start on social media, is just following people that make you feel better about yourself, following accounts that make you feel better about yourself. But going back to what Fred was saying, just wrapping it up, this has been our first episode where we've kind of gone, the first introductory episode was quite chill.
Yeah.
But I've absolutely loved talking about this, going from everything through talking about our opinions on things, bringing up cases, statistics. That's what we were saying in the first episode. We want to tell stories to people that they might not have heard, bring up statistics. It's more than just, social media, what's your opinion on this? We can kind of, hopefully we've added some value to you guys, to your day, to your night, however you're listening. That you kind of enjoyed it and found it really interesting. And if there's anything, format wise that you'd like us to change or add or perhaps not do next time, please do let us know, either at Fred ArthurPod on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whatever, on YouTube. Obviously, we're now on Spotify and iTunes.
Yeah, definitely tune in. Definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel, Fred ArthurPod. Follow us on all socials. They'll be below, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.